going out and there's no turning back. So I just said, yep, no, do it. And I was out. So the next few, the op itself was a little bit hairy, as I'm sure some of you have already become aware of. My right lung was apparently the hardest they've ever had to pull out, just because of course, the fact that everything's so sticky and whatever in there, so it was clinging on for dear life, well and truly. So because of that I had lots of internal bleeding. They had to actually take me back into theatre and open me back up again several times afterwards to try and contain it all. I also had an encapsulated cavity in my right lung, which was full of staph, so of course as soon as they go to pull the right lung out, that bursts open and I get a massive staph infection in my bloodstream as well. And of course somewhere in the middle of all that I had multiple organ failure as well, so you know, pretty much everything that could have gone wrong kind of did. So I sort of ended up here on the old ECMO/bypass machine for about 4 or 5 days and in a coma for 6 days afterwards. Yeah, was on kidney dialysis as well and had something like about, what was it, about 30 electronic syringes, something like that initially, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, you know, with everything from, you know, insulin to adrenaline to, you know, I mean, let's face it, I mean, everything was being done externally. I was just, you know, pretty much in a vegetative state then. And there, although it looks like, you know, I'm kind of awake, that's just actually the amount of, you know, edema that I'd retained, because I retained 10 kgs worth of fluid just during the op itself. So, you know, just the fact that my eyes look open is just from the amount of fluid I have on my face. So yeah, about a week after the op, well, just under a week after the op, this being Christmas Day, they finally wake me up. And of course, you know, I can't move, I can't talk, you know, basically I can't communicate. I had to quite literally learn to you know, move and whatever else again, you know, slowly being able to, you know, wiggle your fingers and then arms and whatever over the next few days. But of course initially it was kind of, I just had a lot of trouble actually getting to sleep and whatnot, because it was kind of like, well, you know, I've been in a coma for 6 days, they're doping me up with massive doses of old methylpreg, you know, IV steroids. And of course a few hours after waking me up, they wanted me to go back to sleep again. So, you know, what am I missing here, you know? But what are you going to do? Yeah. So I didn't actually sleep at all, I don't think, for about the first 3 days, but then I did finally starting to get a little bit anyway. But you know, as time went on, I became, you know, they extubated the tube, and as I say, I slowly started to retain the old motor skills, but despite all the fluid I retained. I mean, that photo probably doesn't do it justice, but I mean, my elbows were twice as wide as what they are now at this point, even still, just again from the fluid retention. And I mean, you can see all the wires, and I mean, I think it's fairly self-explanatory for the most part. So yeah, as time goes on, of course, things slowly start to come out. But of course, I then got, at about this point, they discovered I had this thing called a bezoar. No, sorry, a bezoar, it's pronounced, B-E-Z-O-A-R, I think that's how it's spelled. But that's a post-transplant complication that I think is only specific to CF, or at least lung transplant patients. It's where the main nerve into your stomach actually shuts down after the transplant, and everything that goes into your stomach actually crusts up, and so, you know, everything literally, as I say, it's shut down. So there's I had, you know, a lot of bloating and whatnot, and I mean, it got to the point where even taking a sip of water was like painful for a couple of days or so. But yeah, anyway, there's 2 ways they can correct that, thankfully. One of them is, of course, they can put me back under and put something down and you know, try and break it all up. And the other one is, of course, they just get you to drink lots of this. So you can guess what I did. Yeah, exactly, and I still do, of course. So yeah, this is roughly about day 16. You finally start getting out of bed and getting back on your feet. Well, so to speak. At least starting to get into your rehab and whatnot. You know, starting to burn off some of that, or should I say pee out some of that excess fluid that I'd retained, and you know, actually start building up some legs, which of course I've just never had, and of course you can see there I didn't have a lot of still. And after 3 weeks I finally got over to Hardy Towers, or okay, should I say quickly got over to Hardy Towers, which is the post-transplant rehab centre for lung and heart transplant patients, where we all go basically once you're sort of too well to be in hospital anymore, but they still want to sort of keep monitoring you for, well, it's usually up to about 3 months after your transplant anyway. And of course, you know, lots and lots of pills. I mean, I was always on plenty before, and so I'm actually only on about 3 or 4 more extras now, which isn't too bad. And I mean, the good thing, of course, is that actually that's pretty much all I have to do is pop a whole lot of pills in the morning and run out the door. You know, there's no more nebulizers or IV antibiotics, or you know, all the other crap that, you know. I mean, you've all been there, so yeah. And of course, you know, I got, you know, I mean, the good thing about actually having recovered so quickly and whatever was that, well, I actually got quite bored. And well, so did Mum, because of course she had to hang around there with me, so I actually started going on Trade Me and that, and finding Where's Wally puzzles to do, just for something to do. Because although you've got the internet and Sky TV and whatever there, it's still, you know, on the weekends when there's no one else around, you're kind of limited to what you can sort of do. So this is me. I've got 6 fingers up deliberately to remind myself that this is 6 weeks post. So, you know, even then things were still going great and on the up and up. And just to show that, hey, you know, my legs were actually starting to get a little bit sexy, and I was starting to build up some muscle from you know, all the gym work that they get you on to doing. And I mean, even now I'm still back up in the hospital gym here 3 days a week, except of course for yesterday morning when I set my alarm for PM instead of AM. Didn't wake up until about 10 minutes before the gym class finished, but never mind. 7 weeks post-transplant, and whoops, went on the Auckland Luge, which is about half an hour or so above you know, north of Auckland, and got that little bit sunburned, didn't I? Probably a little hard to see from where you are just because of the light, but from about you know, the middle of my bicep down, of course, is fairly red if you can't quite make it out. Yeah, because there's no cover or anything, so as I say, I've got that little bit sunburnt, and so of course the transplant coordinators are going, you know, that whole risk of you know, the increased risk of cancer and whatnot. But well, you know, whoops, too late then. And so this is just under 8 weeks. 8 weeks after the transplant, and the day that they were letting me go home. So I mean, this is what all the scars and whatnot look like. And the 2 guys on the right there both had heart transplants about 10 days before this photo was taken. So that's what the scars look like.